So here is the new letter L block. Letter L is the 12th alphabet letter. The shape is based on the Little Dipper, which is shown on this face, comprised of 7 stars. The 7 stars said to be iron, which is this tip here. This is called the Etymology tool. And this evolved into letter L over time from the Phoenician L, where this became triangle shaped. The Greek L, Greek lambda, Greek small lambda, Etruscan L, Aramaic L in 2600 A. And the Egyptians called this constellation the set-leg constellation, which is F23 hieroglyph. And they modeled or made this wooden-handled tool, wooden-shaped tool with meteoric iron at the tip, based on the Ursa Minor or Little Dipper or set-leg constellation, which they put to the mouth of the Osiris mummy to revive it, or open its lips, or raise it from the dead. Secondly, Egyptians also believed that the shape of these 5 stars matched the shape of the Nile River from Nomes 1 to Nomes 7. This is where Aswan Dam is, Philia Island, and Philia Island is where the word love comes from, because the word Philia in Greek is spelled F-I-L-A-I, and the word for love in Greek is spelled the same, but it's I-A. So the A and I are switched, but they both are equal to 551. So this is the number for love. Now here we see Isis bringing Osiris back to life. So let's take a look at a little clip of that. First we see Osiris getting mad here.
Into parts and spread those pieces across every province of Egypt.
He rips Osiris into
Eventually
pieces.
returning to an empty casket, Isis was now double grief-struck. So she turned into a falcon and flew across the land, crying so strongly that her tears flooded the Nile and fertilized Egypt. Upon seeing her sister's despair.
Okay, so that's Nephthys. Now let's take a look at where this 𝑍iife was torn into 14 pieces. So here we have letters E, which is the triple phallus or triple seeding letter, and then F is the double seeding letter, so it's like a combat between sexual powers here, and then Set is letter Z. So the original story goes that Osiris accidentally slept with Nephthys, who he thought was his wife because they are twin sisters. So Set, who is letter Z, found out about this and ripped Osiris into 14 pieces. So this is 14 pieces is a metaphor for the first 14 letters of the alphabet, and then Osiris grows into plants. You hoe, you sow here, and then you reap your plants over here. And this is where the Osiris gets cut up. And then the clip we just saw where the tears of Isis floods the Nile, that's one of the myths for letter N, where the water comes from. And then there's a 150-day flood. And then the alphabet starts over again after the sun is born out of the lotus at the 28th letter. So the point about letter L is that the shape is based on Ursa Minor, the side leg, and Mishtu. And here we see Upper Egypt, where we see this is going north, we see the Mishtu tool overlapping Nomes 1 through 7, which matches with the Little Dipper. And then right here is Philia Island. And it's right over here. This is the New Aswan Dam. Right now the island is submerged. But originally, so here's the same letter inverted, but north is facing downward, so we can see the letter L shape. Originally the island looked like this, and it was bird-shaped, like the bird that Osiris turns into, or that Isis turns into.
Nephthys decided to help. She also to a falcon and flew across the land, crying so strongly that her tears flooded the Nile and fertilized Egypt. Upon seeing her sister's despair, Nephthys decided to help. She also transformed into a bird and joined Isis.
Okay, so the bird in question is a kite. It's a small falcon. So the Egyptians, there used to be an Isis temple on this island. This is the first 𝑍�ife of Egypt. So if we go over here, this is where letter A starts. And the alphabet letters go forward like this. And the Philia Island was believed to be a magnet, and that the seventh star was believed to be iron, and something like the iron rotated around the Polaris star in the sky. So this became lodestone in Latin. In Greek it's called Polaris. And the island became a metaphor for Polaris and Isis, who transformed. You can see the shape of her wings here is Philia Island. And she transforms into a kite and brings Osiris back to life. Here we see the same view of Nile. We see letter D here going downward. Then we see the Mishtu tool here. So this is the Little Dipper. So one day the sun is born, you get one day's rotation like this, and that constitutes one letter. And then the second day of the sun constitutes another rotation. So the sun rotates in a circle like this. And then at the end of 360 days, the cycle starts over again and goes back to A. So the reason that this is a cipher for L is this is shaped like L. The island, Philia Island, Philia is spelled A-I, but the word for love, Philia, is spelled I-A, but they both equal 551. Also, letter L is equal to value 30. And in the central town of letter L is Thebes, and that's also a cipher for 30. So the value of letter L is coded as 30. The island at the handle of letter L is ciphered as the Greek word for love, which is based on Philia Island, Love Island, where Isis turns into a kite as a form of the island, and supposedly the body of Osiris is buried on one of these banks. She brings the love of Isis brings Osiris back to life. We also see that in the first 𝑍�ife, why letter A is equal to 1 is that 𝑘iNum, who makes the first human on, this is Elephantine Island, which is 5 miles away from Philia Island, going north. So he makes the first human, and humans were made to do the work of the gods. That's why he's holding a hoe here. And that's where letter A comes from, and that's why letter A is the first letter, and then all letters go upwards like this. Also, the seventh 𝑍�ife here, this is supposed to be meteoric iron at the tip. That's the seventh 𝑍�ife. And then letter Z in Greek is the seventh letter, value 7. And again, this is where letter Z comes from. These are the early Greek forms of letter Z. There's this medium-sized Z. It's the set animal sitting up, set animal lying down, set animal with the tails for the small Z. And then the tall early Greek form of Z is this tet animal vertical. Who's shown here is letter Z, which became this form in Phoenician. And there we have Etruscan, Aramaic, now here's our explanation side of the block for the love letter. Letter L is based on the Little Dipper, the Set Leg constellation, the Nile River shape gnomes 1 through 7, and the Mishtu mouth or lip opening tool shown here, which brings Osiris back to life.
In scouring the land for the scattered pieces of Osiris. Now, the myth gets really vague at this point, completely skipping over how the pieces get found. Perhaps their sky mother Nut made divine winds so they could search all of Egypt in a single day.
B
or perhaps
and
their
letter
earth
G,
father 𝑍iife uncovered the pieces so they could be seen from the sky.
which are, that's Chi is on the ground,
Heck, maybe the myth is vague because the goddesses just found the piece. Perhaps their sky mother Nut made divine winds so they could search all of Egypt in a single day. Or perhaps their earth father 𝑍iife uncovered the pieces so they
there's
could be seen
𝑍iife.
from the sky.
Her real name
Maybe
is
the myth
actually,
vague because the goddesses just found the pieces through sheer dumb.
he says Nut. He spells her name Nut. We can see there's the stars right there above her head, and he's got air coming out of her. This is incorrect. Shu is actually the air god. So the air god is Shu, and actually, as we've already talked about, Shu separates Bet. So Shu becomes letter A, and also this symbol of is the Ho. And then Bet is the stars, which is this shape here, which you see on top of her head, plus a pot of water, and this is supposedly a piece of bread, which is right here. There's the hieroglyphs. W24, pot of water, bread. Supposedly this makes the T sound, but alphanumerically we've determined that this symbol is B because it became to this Phoenician B. You see her two arms hanging over, and that's her breast, and that's her back. And this became Phoenician B, Greek B, two breasts, Etruscan B, and there's Aramaic B. And there's Nut again with her human form. So the real phonetic name now is Bet, which is called Beta in Greek, or in, there's the same picture, or in Hebrew, Beth, and a similar B sound in Sanskrit. Now to conclude with our letter A block, to find this image of Osiris, of Isis flying over Osiris.
Made divine winds so they eventually found.
She collects the body pieces,
Almost all of them.
except for
In
the
one version of the tale,
phallus.
Set hid Osiris's phallus separately. For this special piece, he had divined.
So the phallus got lost in the Nile, eaten by a fish. And then then there's 𝑍iife, he stops time. There's the fish that swallows the phallus. And then Isis, flies.
God of writing and wisdom, and the embalming power of Anubis, divine psychopomp.
Again, there's the alphabet inventor. So in the alphabet, 𝑍iife comes in as there's the 𝑍iife monkey, so he's Q. That's his main symbol. But also, 𝑍iife is found in third column where the letters come from. If you add up 300 plus 30 plus 3, you get 333, and you divide that by pi, you get the word for moon. And also 2 plus 20 plus 200 is the word for the ibis, which is the other animal of 𝑍iife.
The complete body of Osiris was reassembled as the first mummy, and Isis, still in bird form, used her great wings to fan breath and life back into her husband. As he opened his eyes, he saw Isis was overjoyed. Her months of grief and toil were immediately washed away, and quickly, still in bird form, she betted her just resurrected husband. And perhaps it was because she stopped fanning her wings, right? Or maybe that...
Okay, so this part here is another version of it, where Osiris flies on top. This is either a golden phallus or her thumb, and she revives Osiris, brings him back to light, and at this moment she conceives Horus, which is the new sun, and then the alphabet starts over again. And also, is Christiane Novelcourt, who put me onto this whole 𝑍iife. Supposedly she was the woman that launched an effort to move Isis temple to a new island after they built Philia Dam, because this is now an underwater island except for a small rock that protrudes once per year when the water levels get low. She says the contours of Philia Island are the same shape as a bird or kite, mirroring Isis's transformation. So we have Philia Island, means Philia, or love in Greek. Shape is the origin of letter L, and the value of letter L is cipher for Thebes, which is the main capital of Upper Egypt. And that concludes our video on the new love block.